It looks that we are having progress here. Most of the things are soldered up. I wanted to show you how it looks before I install the tone wires and master volume wires, because they will be, they will be in the way of seeing the circuit. Let's start with the power supply. We have those two dropping resistors. Then we have rectifier diodes, reservoir cap, and a screen supply cap. It happens to fit just right in this area. I used some hot glue to cover the screws holding the boards, so I will not have any shorts. Now let's move from input down to output of this amp. So we have the input jack. It goes to the grid of preamp tube. Cathode is located, cathode bypass cap and cathode resistors are here. Plate is being fed by this node here. We have 220k plate resistor going to this 22k, which is the preamp supply node. And it also, from here it goes also to the PI power supply node. So from the plate it goes through the coupling cap to the switching, and I can switch the bright cap on and off, and also I'm switching the 330k resistor. Actually it's 270 because that's what I have. It doesn't make a big difference, and it goes in and out of the circuit. So this will be my bright and thick switch. From here it goes to the grid of the phase inverter. We have the regular PI tail with 1 meg resistors going from the grids, 1.2k from the cathodes of this PI tube, and 47k going to ground. Input cap value of this PI is 10, is it? Should be 10 nanofarads. It's a little bit lower than regular AC30, but it's just the amount, but it's just the value of AC30 treble. So it rolls off a little bit of the bass on the input of phase inverter. The coupling caps going out of the phase inverter go to this master volume pot, and then the wiper lag will go to the grid resistors of power tubes. Talking about the power tubes, we have 1.5 grid resistors, we have 820 screen resistors. This is what I have. I was looking for 470, but don't have them on hand, so I decided to use 820. It should be even better to protect them from the currents. 22 microfarad cathode cap with 120 ohms cathode resistor. Original had like 220, I think. I think it's too much. 22 microfarads is just enough, and it will give me a bass roll off at 50 hertz, and I don't need anything below 50 hertz in this kind of amp. I am reusing all the wires that were originally in this amp, so this was really a great build because I'm not doing everything from the scratch. I'm using what is in place. I was using the holes for the tube sockets, I'm using the wires, I'm using the input jacks, just rearranging this area. This is how it was before. It's still tidy, and you can see I took away some of the parts. They are nice quality, so I can use them in future projects. But now it looks like this, which is more old school, but also easier to manage. easier to repair. Actually, I'm not expecting any repairs, because if this amp is dropped, if something hits the amp, it's still rigid enough to withhold anything, and it's all well soldered with 6040 solder, so it should work. The heater wiring, I'm not sure if you can see that. It goes to the power tube, to another power tube, then it goes to here, it goes to V1, and then it goes to PI, and then it's hidden down there, and it goes here again. And here's where I heat shrink that with the lamp. I was looking for a solution to rectify the voltage coming to the LED, to the power LED, but I found a lamp, a regular 6-volt lamp, so I replaced the LED with the lamp, and I no longer need to put any additional components to rectify the voltage. It will work from AC. I'm not doing anything with the other half of V1. I just don't feel I have space here, and it's already packed. It still looks tidy, but I wouldn't want to have any more in this area. It might get a little bit hot. It's on the edge of being manageable and edge of being able to solder anything, or correct the soldering or desolder any components. Now that everything is in place, I will be putting the 2 mega ohm resistors here to secure the wipers from failing, and then I will install the master volume wires. They go from the wiper to the grids of power tubes. So once they are there, it's gonna be very hard to go back to any of the other elements down there. And the tone control will go from the pot to the same grids of the power tubes. I am still wondering about this 1K dropping resistor. Maybe I would put something bigger, just to have a little bit more voltage drop, because here I have 450 volts cap, and this one is 400 volts, 47 microfarads. If I get too close to 400 volts, this will shorten the life of the cap. And the power goes in a old Vox style, so it's not a series of caps and resistors to another node, to another B1, B2, B plus 2, B plus 3, B plus 4. It goes to here, and then it splits into V1 and PI supply. So it's kind of old approach. And I have 10 microfarad caps here for the power supply nodes of V1 and PI. And I wanted to keep them small, just to, to have some sponginess of the amp, so it's not becoming too stiff. It will be more stiff in the power section because I have the smaller cap here. If I had like 100 microfarads, this would get, the bottom end will go much lower, and the amp will be less stiff, might become fizzy at high volumes. It seems we're very, very close to the final powering up of this amp. Checking if all the tubes will light up, checking all the voltages, checking the power rating. I should be good with this 120 ohm resistor. I should be getting something around 12-13 watts from each power tube. If I get too much of a plate dissipation, I would need to change this into 150 or even a bigger resistor, but let's see how this 120 will work. In terms of general approach here, I was using all those it's not a heat shrink, it's, you know, like a woven material, and I was using this to make sure that I get no shorts from components touching each other. It's not only to make it pretty, well, it makes it much prettier guts of an amp with these, but it also makes for the safety. So whatever I have long leads, and I have a lot of long leads here. I'm using this tubing to prevent any shorts. It turns out that the terminal strips was the best approach to making this amp happen. I wouldn't be able to do this with regular tag boards because the space is so limited. Now when it comes to grounding, the first ground is here where the power supply negative goes to ground. I also have here the input jack ground. So input jack is not grounded at the chassis, it's grounded at the first V1 grounding node. Then the second ground is here, and here I have the PI power supply going to the ground, and I also have the gain knob going to the ground here. One of the things I've seen in other builds is grounding this gain knob to the grounding point of the input, which is not very good because the gain pod is already after this coupling cap, so it's in another place and it should be grounded in another place. So we have this ground, then we have the power tubes ground, which goes through cathode resistor down here. And here we also have ground of the master volume, which is also the right place for the master volume to be grounded at. Here you have the 100 ohm resistors, and they are grounded to the first grounding point, which is the grounding of the reservoir cap. So it goes through here and down here to a bolt with an eyelet where it connects. There's another eyelet at the same grounding point used for grounding the center tap of the power transformer. There is also a separate ground for the second power supply node, the screen supply cap. It goes through here, and you will not see this, but it's below this board. It's in this area below the board, so it's another separate grounding point. So it's not a perfect grounding design in terms of the shape of the flow of the grounding, but it's still as good as it could be. You go from here, you go there, you go there, then you make a little zigzag, which, well, I wouldn't be able to do it any other way. So you go with a little zigzag and then go to the first grounding point, the reservoir cap grounding and the center tap grounding. So it's not like going in different directions, it has just this one zigzag of the grounding, so the best I could do. And I think it would be just enough for this kind of amp, which doesn't have a lot of gain, because you only have one gain stage basically. This should not matter much, but yet I want to keep this as quiet as possible, because everything is so packed up in this tiny little space that everything starts to matter, even if the amp is not a high gain amp. Okay, off we go to having those components mounted.